Before we begin tonight's drift, take a slow breath. If you find peace in quiet journeys through the stars, in stories that ease the mind and soften sleepless nights, you're welcome to stay. Subscribe to Cosmic Drift and let each voyage carry you a little closer to rest, where sound becomes silence and thought becomes calm. Hello there, and welcome back. Let the noise of the day drift to the edges until all that's left is the soft pulse of your breath. Whether you're lying under a dim lamp or watching the night through a window, let yourself settle slow, quiet, weightless. Imagine a faint horizon where sunlight fades into shadow. Above it, a pale arc of gold, the last whisper of the sun before it disappears into the deep. Around you, dust glows like embers caught in sleep, and far away, the planets turn in their silent rhythm. The air, if there were air, would feel still and infinite. Each speck of light is a memory, each shadow a pause between thoughts. This is a journey to the edge of the solar system, not a race, not a mission, but a quiet drift outward past the warmth of the known, toward the calm of the unseen. It is a story of light, distance, and silence. Three companions that have traveled together since the beginning. What waits beyond the last breath of the sun's wind? What happens when the light that shaped us begins to fade, and we find ourselves at the edge of everything we've ever called home? Where are you listening from tonight? Maybe your room is dim. Maybe it's raining. Maybe it's filled with a soft hum of quiet things. No matter where you are, we are all drifting beneath the same sky, the same ancient ocean of stars. So if you love slow journeys, the kind that breathe rather than move, stay a little longer. You don't have to think, or search, or know. Just listen. Let your thoughts fall to the rhythm of distant light. We will begin our gentle walk through a journey to the edge of the solar system, moving not to escape, but to understand how far silence can stretch and how softly the sun says goodbye in the quiet cradle of space, where silence still carried the weight of beginnings. The first breath of light was born. It did not burst or blaze. It unfolded. A soft shimmer spilled into the dark, stretching outward like a sigh, finally released after an eternity of stillness. From the center of this newborn warmth came the sun, not as a roaring god of fire, but as a pulse, a steady rhythm that began to hum through the fabric of what would one day be called the solar system. The light did not rush, it wandered. It touched the grains of dust that drifted nearby, painting them gold, teaching them how to glow. It caressed the faint outlines of rock, the scattered whispers of future planets, and in doing so, it gave them form, It was not light to see by, not yet, but light to become by, the first kind of knowing, the quiet realization that existence itself could shine in every direction. The glow spread like a gentle tide. There was no border to stop it, no edge to contain it. The emptiness yielded, turning soft beneath its touch. Dust began to gather, not through command, but through a shared attraction, a silent recognition among the drifting fragments that they were part of something larger. Around that luminous center, a faint dance began. Nothing hurried, nothing demanded, only motion patient, circular, eternal. If you could listen closely, perhaps you would hear the rhythm beneath it, all the breath of a newborn star. The warmth that radiated was not only heat, it was a memory forming, a song written in light. That light was patient enough to wait for worlds. It wrapped itself around everything, even the smallest pieces, whispering the same message: you belong. And in that belonging, life's first rhythm took shape. Every grain of dust spun in quiet harmony, tracing unseen lines that curved into the future. The space between things was vast, but not empty. It was filled with promise, with the calm hum of balance, with the serenity of something that has just begun to dream. Far from chaos, the early solar system was an ocean of golden mist. The light traveled outward, but never truly left its source. It was both journey and home stretching, folding, weaving warmth into the void. The sun, still young, glowed with a kind of innocence. Its surface shimmered like breath on glass, and through its gentle radiance, time began to take its first step. Moments did not yet exist in the way you understand them. Each flicker of light was both past and future, overlapping, infinite. The first wave of brightness touched invisible walls that would someday hold orbits. And even then, the sun did not command it, invited. Around it, particles began to listen, began to turn. This was not control, it was conversation. And so the light found its companions, clouds of dust swirling into soft spirals, rocks colliding only to become whole again. What had been motionless now trembled with purpose. The warmth from the center grew steadier, and in its glow, the first outlines of harmony were drawn. The solar system was not yet built, but it was awake. It was aware in the way that silence is aware of the sound it waits for. The light reached outward until it began to thin. Its touch grew softer, fading into the dark. But even where it dimmed, its essence remained a trace, a breath, a thought left floating. Every ray that escaped carried within it the memory of its source, like a heartbeat echoing across a boundless sea. There was peace in this expansion, no rush to create, no hunger to claim. The sun continued to breathe in its golden rhythm, and the space around it answered. Together they formed the first pulse of order, not yet structure, but harmony, the kind that exists when nothing yet knows it is being heard. Light had given the void a heartbeat. Warmth had given shape to thought. The beginning was not marked by noise or flame, but by the slow unfolding of understanding. The moment awareness begins to stretch its limbs, and beyond that light, beyond the gentle sway of dust and time, the space waited. It listened to the rhythm, learning it, carrying it forward into the vastness. The breath of creation drifted farther, and the golden mist began to settle into form. Soon, that rhythm would find companions of its own, spheres of rock and gas, each spinning in quiet obedience to the same unseen music. They would circle the sun as if tracing the outline of its first song, and as the light continued to wander, carrying warmth into the cold, something subtle began to stir. The journey was no longer about beginning. It was about movement, the slow unfolding of what balance could become. And so, as the golden glow reached its edges and began to fade into blue shadow, the story whispered onward toward the next rhythm, the next orbit, the next step in the dance of creation. The light did not stop, it only softened, leading you gently into the next moment, where the planets would rise and begin their long, quiet waltz around their star. Around the sun, the space that once shimmered only with drifting dust began to change. The light that stretched from its golden heart no longer wandered aimlessly. It began to gather, to cradle. Within that glow, quiet circles took shape. They were not drawn in haste, but traced over millions of soft turns, like ripples around a calm center. One by one, the planets emerged not as strangers, but as fragments returning home. Closest to the sun was Mercury, small and swift, a restless spark caught in an endless dance of heat and motion. It seemed to hum, like a fleeting thought that could never stay still. Farther out, Venus turned slowly, cloaked in cloud and glow. Holding her secrets close, the warmth she carried was both love and burden. Then came Earth, a gentle rhythm, balanced between warmth and shadow, carrying whispers of oceans that had not yet learned to speak. Mars followed, quiet and distant, a world of silent wind and waiting dust, as though time itself paused there to remember. They spun together, bound not by command but by harmony. The sun's pull was not force, it was invitation, a hand extended in light, and the planets answered, each in their own time, finding their place in a song that had no beginning, no end, only movement. The solar system had become a kind of family, not through touch, but through shared motion, shared rhythm from above. If you could stand where space turns dark and still, you might see them as glowing beads on a thread of light, circling the same warmth that had once been only a breath. Each orbit was a verse, each shadow a pause. They did not rush, for nothing in the universe ever truly rushes. Everything moves at the pace of meaning. The sun's warmth stretched through the vast distance, reaching each planet differently, gentle here, fierce there, but always constant. It did not choose who to bless. It simply gave, and the planets, in their turning, returned the gift by reflecting it back, scattering light across the void. The result was a balance so delicate it could only be born from silence, the kind of silence that listens, not the kind that forgets. Between them, space shimmered. The emptiness wasn't empty anymore. It pulsed with invisible music, gravity's lullaby, the soft conversation between mass and motion. You could almost feel it. If you were still enough, the way each planet tugged, leaned, and yielded, never alone, always in communion. The solar system was not a mechanism, but a slow waltz written in sunlight. In that waltz, there was intimacy, a closeness born not of distance, but of rhythm. Every orbit was an embrace, every shadow a breath. You could say the sun was listening to its children, feeling them turn and through them, learning what it meant to be at the center of something vast yet connected. As the light touched Earth, it lingered. Here, the warmth softened just enough for seas to sigh, for winds to wander, for the first whispers of life to someday rise. But that moment was still far away, a promise folded deep within the waves of time. For now, it was enough that the planets existed, that their motion was poetry, that the solar system had found its song. Each planet carried a story, not yet told, but already known. Mercury's fire, Venus's veil, Earth's gentle pulse, Mars's quiet patience, all part of the same memory written in light. Even the worlds beyond, the giants still gathering in the distance, were tuning themselves to this rhythm. The sun shone not to command, but to listen, and as it listened, it grew calmer, its radiance deepening into something steady, the warmth of belonging. If you could drift there, between the planets, you'd feel the peace of it, not silence that swallows, but silence that holds. Oh, the soft hum of orbiting worlds, the faint push of solar wind, the glow that never fades, all of it breathing together, like a single heartbeat spread across billions of miles. In that breath, time unfolded gently. There was no urgency, no need for completion. The solar system was not being built. It was remembering itself, one orbit at a time. And as the light traveled outward, beyond Mars, it began to thin. The warmth grew faint and the darkness thickened, yet even here, far from the sun's full embrace, its rhythm could still be felt, a faint pulse guiding the cold. The outer planets waited in that quiet, gathering themselves, preparing to join the song. The solar system had found its balance not through stillness, but through movement, light and shadow, warmth and cold, pull and release, all flowing together. And as you drift farther, past the golden rings of warmth and into the edge of cool blue dusk, you can almost feel it, the rhythm slowing, the heartbeat stretching. Something vast is waiting beyond this circle, beyond the reach of the sun's voice. The warmth fades into wonder, and somewhere ahead, at the boundary where light begins to forget its way home, another kind of glow begins to stir the quiet whisper of what lies beyond the planets. The story does not end here. It only deepens, carrying you softly toward the edge of the solar system, where the light begins to dream again. Beyond the warm orbit of Mars, the golden light of the sun began to dim, not fading away, but softening as though it had reached a place where memory was thicker than motion. Here, the light moved differently. It no longer streamed forward like a river. It drifted, weaving through fragments of stone and dust that glimmered faintly in its glow. This was the asteroid belt, the quiet middle ground of the solar system, where the past still lingered, weightless and endless. Each rock that floated here seemed to hold a trace of the beginning. Some were sharp and rough, others smooth as if worn by time. Though there was no wind to touch them, they turned slowly, patiently, as if listening to the long silence between stars. These were not broken things. They were memories, the remains of what almost became, the whispers of worlds that never found their form. The sunlight scattered across them, gilding their edges in a faint, sleepy shimmer. You could almost imagine each one humming softly, echoing the ancient rhythm of the early days when dust danced in heat and chaos, when gravity was young and playful, pulling fragments together only to let them drift apart again. Now, after billions of quiet years, that dance had slowed, and the space between them had grown tender, filled with the calm understanding that not everything needs to become something more. If you could float there among the rocks, you would feel the texture of time itself, not as a rush forward, but as a still presence. The airless quiet is vast, but not empty. There's a feeling here, a pulse that moves too slowly to notice. Yet it's there, the heartbeat of what was once in motion, still alive in its stillness. Some fragments are small enough to fit in the palm of your thought. Others are mountains, adrift in silence. They pass by one another, not colliding, but acknowledging an unspoken awareness, a kind of gentle respect that the universe gives to its own history. Each carries within it the memory of warmth, the imprint of a collision, or the faint trace of a forgotten orbit. The light from the sun takes longer to arrive here. When it does, it feels older, wiser. It touches the stones like a hand that remembers, tracing their shapes not to illuminate, but to remember. The rocks do not shine, they reflect faintly, as though they are too humble to return all the light they receive. In their muted glow, there's beauty in restraint, in the way silence holds the story more tenderly than words ever could. The belt stretches on and on, a ring of ghosts between the inner and outer worlds. It is neither here nor there, but between, like the pause between breaths. And within that pause, the universe seems to think, not with sound, not with speech, but with stillness, a thought so deep and slow that it takes ages to complete. Every now and then, a piece drifts free, slipping away from the belt's soft embrace. It begins a long, solitary journey, perhaps toward the sun, perhaps outward into the dark, but even as it moves, it carries the same quiet rhythm, the same knowing that everything that drifts will one day find its circle again. You might imagine that these rocks, these scattered memories, are the handwriting of time fragments of a letter the universe once wrote to itself and then forgot to finish. When the light touches them, it reads those words again, softly, patiently, as though reminding itself of what it once dreamed of creating. Farther out, the belt begins to thin. The spaces widen, the light grows pale, yet even here, the silence hums. You can sense the boundary approaching where the rocky whispers end and the giants begin. Jupiter waits there, massive and serene, turning slowly in its orbit like a guardian watching over the edge of history. But before you reach it, there's one last glance backward toward the inner worlds, where the sun still glows bright and the warmth feels close. Between you and that light, the belt gleams faintly, like a ring on the hand of creation itself. It is the memory of formation, the trace of dreams that did not become planets, but remained as storytellers of what almost was. If you listen closely, you might hear the faint echo of their turning, not a sound, but a rhythm. Each rock spins to its own time, yet somehow they all move together. It's the same old music that has been playing since the first dust gathered around the sun, a song about patience, about imperfection, about the beauty of being incomplete. As you drift onward, past the last shimmering stones, the light ahead begins to change again. It grows colder, deeper, shifting from gold to silver. The air of warmth fades into a vast blue hush, and just beyond that hush, The outlines of something immense begin to form a world of storms and movement, where stillness becomes motion once more. The asteroid belt falls behind you, its glimmer now just a soft halo in the dark. Ahead lies Jupiter, the first of the great wanderers, a planet so large that even silence bends around it. The journey moves on, slow and steady, carrying you from the quiet memory of the past into the living breath of the giants where light learns to move again. Beyond the drifting ring of stones, the light grew thin, and space began to breathe in deeper, slower rhythms. The airless silence thickened, folding into hues of soft blue and distant gold. Here, at the edge of the inner solar system, stood the giants immense, calm, and patient. They did not glitter like the inner worlds, nor sing in the bright voice of reflected sunlight. They hummed low, steady, and eternal. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, the great listeners of the cosmos. Jupiter came first, vast and composed, turning in quiet majesty. It did not speak in storms, though its clouds curled endlessly, nor boast of its size, though it held gravity like a deep, invisible song. Its presence alone seemed enough, the kind of presence that does not demand attention, but fills the silence with its own weight. Light met its swirling surface and lingered, tracing the arcs of its storms, like a hand over the skin of time. Every movement here felt slow, deliberate, and ancient. Jupiter was not loud, but it was beyond it. Saturn waited, ringed and radiant, its beauty as fragile as a sigh. The rings were not loud either. They shimmered softly, made of ice and dust that caught the faintest whisper of light and returned it in ripples. If you looked long enough, you could almost see the rhythm of the universe in those rings, the repeating, patient circling of things that have learned to stay. Saturn's quiet grace was not stillness, but balance. It was the sound of eternity taking form. Farther still, Uranus turned on its side, slowly and with a kind of shy dignity, as though it had found comfort in being different. It spun in a tilted dream, half lit, half lost in shadow, content to drift unnoticed in its solitude. And beyond it, Neptune swayed through the dark, its deep blue heart shimmering faintly like the last echo of a lullaby. The light that reached it was weak, but it glowed anyway, soft, defiant, serene. Together they stood like sentinels, not guarding, not commanding, but holding. Their gravity anchored the farthest edges of the solar system, keeping everything in quiet harmony. They were not creators, they were sustainers, the keepers of balance. Their silence was not emptiness, it was understanding, the kind that comes when words are no longer needed. The space among them was vast. The light from the sun was now only a pale memory. A distant warmth felt more in thought than touch. Yet within that faintness, there was peace. The giants turned slowly, their orbits vast and patient. They seemed to breathe with the rhythm of ages, not marking time, but embodying it. If you could drift here, just beyond Saturn's rings, you would feel the stillness settle around you like a blanket. The storms that raged below would not reach you. Their motion would only hum in the background, deep and low. A heartbeat too wide to comprehend. The silence here was not absence, it was fullness. Every atom, every glint of ice, every faint pulse of magnetism was part of the same slow song. The giants did not chase the light, they let it come, and when it did, they reflected it softly, gently, as though not to disturb the dark. Their quiet wisdom was not in what they held, but in what they allowed the space for everything else to exist. Around them, smaller moons turned in quiet arcs, their paths steady, their shadows graceful. Some reflected the sun like mirrors, others swallowed the light entirely, carrying night on their faces. Together they formed small choruses orbiting vastness, an endless hymn of motion and stillness intertwined. The giants were reminders that power need not shout. They taught that magnitude can coexist with calm, that to move slowly is not to lag, but to endure. Their gravity did not dominate, it nurtured, binding the solar system into a single rhythm. As the sun's warmth faded into cool distance, in the soft blue shadow of Neptune, the light of the sun was barely a whisper, yet it was enough. Even here, where the cold deepened and sound no longer carried, there was a sense of belonging. The solar system stretched wide, but it was a single thought, expanding across space, held together by unseen hands of harmony. And beyond the last of the giants, a strange glow lingered, not from light, but from memory. The sun's breath had carried far, and though faint, it still reached into the outer dark, touching what came next. The edge was near now, not an ending, but a boundary that felt alive. You could sense it, even before you saw it, the thinning of light, the softening of color, the quiet hum that turned into a whisper. Beyond Neptune lay something vast yet fragile, a region where sunlight hesitated and the ancient cold began to speak. It was the Kuiper Belt, where dust and ice drifted like forgotten snowflakes, carrying with them the last sighs of the sun's reach. The giants continued their slow turning, unaware or perhaps content that their realm was giving way to this shimmering frontier. Their silence, their steadiness was the prelude. The deep inhale before the universe exhaled into the edge of its known world. And so, as the last glint of Neptune's blue faded behind, the journey continued outward into the realm where warmth meets cold, and light begins to dissolve into dream. The great planets grew small behind you, but their calm lingered, steady as a pulse. The silence deepened, and ahead, the soft veil of the outer dark began to rise, where even the faintest light carries the memory of home. As you drift farther from the great blue calm of Neptune, the sun no longer feels like a star. Its warmth fades into memory, a faint shimmer on the edge of thought, the light that once defined everything, the light that touched oceans, clouds, rings, and moons now softens into something else. It is no longer brightness, but breath, gentle, distant, slow. You have stepped beyond the region of clear sunlight, where illumination gives way to reflection and heat becomes silence. Here, the light moves differently. It no longer commands shapes or draws boundaries. It wanders, bending through dust, touching fragments of ice that sparkle briefly and then disappear into shadow. The space feels thinner, stretched wide, but more intimate, as if you have entered the mind of the universe itself, where thoughts travel like pale comets and silence has its own gravity. Every glint of light seems to hesitate before continuing, as though deciding whether to move forward or stay and rest in the cold. The warmth you once knew fades gradually, not with loss, but with peace. It's the same kind of peace you feel when a song reaches its last note and the silence afterward holds the echo. Out here, that echo lasts forever. The stars are no longer bright shapes, but distant sighs, and the sun now just another point in the black flickers like a candle seen from across an endless field. Yet even so, you can feel its rhythm. It still breathes softly through the thin light that reaches this far. You begin to notice how still everything feels. The motion that once defined the solar system, the rushing orbits, the spinning storms seems to slow here. The movement continues, yes, but at a pace so gentle it no longer feels like movement. Time itself seems to drift, its edges blurred. There is no sense of before or after, only the quiet presence of now. Around you, faint traces of ice drift like forgotten dreams, remnants of what was once alive with motion, now suspended in patient stillness. They glimmer faintly, not reflecting the sun, but holding within themselves a pale, private glow, as if they've learned to carry their own light. These fragments do not seek warmth. They are content in the calm, knowing that even in the coldest silence, they remain part of something vast. The darkness here is not empty. It is full of waiting, full of awareness. It holds everything gently, from the faint hum of cosmic wind to the fragile orbit of a speck of ice. You can feel the universe breathing around you, not in sound, but in presence, a pulse beneath the silence, so deep it feels like a heartbeat beneath your own. If you could touch this quiet, it would feel smooth, endless, and alive. There's something soothing in it, something that invites surrender. You realize this isn't the absence of light, but the deepening of it, a kind of understanding that brightness alone could never give. The light here is contemplative, reflective. It doesn't show what is, it reveals what remains. And as you drift through this faint, serene region, you begin to sense something else beyond a boundary not of walls or matter, but of perception. The solar system has not ended, but the sun's voice has grown too soft to follow. You are approaching the threshold where warmth gives way to wonder, the beginning of the outer dark. In the distance, the faint line of the Kuiper Belt begins to take shape, a ring of frozen fragments circling in unhurried rhythm. Too far to be planets, too close to be stars. Each piece holds within it the memory of the early solar system, untouched, unchanged. They are the keepers of what came before, drifting silently in their endless loop. The farther you travel, the quieter the sun becomes. You can almost feel its last breath brushing against your thoughts, a soft farewell, not of departure, but of trust. It lets you go gently, knowing that what lies ahead is not the end, but another kind of beginning. The darkness ahead is not void, but possibility, an untouched canvas, waiting for the light that has traveled all this way to draw its next story here. Between the fading sunlight and the outer dark, you find a moment of stillness so pure it feels eternal. The stars ahead blink faintly, and you can sense that something vast awaits, not louder, not brighter, but deeper. You are about to leave the sun's clear domain, to step into the realm where space itself begins to remember. And so, with one final look back at the small, glowing sun behind you, that fragile point of gold, holding all the warmth you have ever known, you drift forward, softly, into the edge of the unknown. The light thins, the shadows grow tender, and the silence hums like a heartbeat stretched across infinity. Beyond this quiet boundary lies the next chapter where light meets the frozen remains of creation, where the solar system blurs into the whispering vastness beyond. The Kuiper Belt awaits patient, shimmering, and eternal, where even the cold carries the memory of the sun. Far beyond the soft glitter of the Kuiper Belt, the sun's breath grows thin. The stream of particles that once carried its warmth, its invisible song of motion, begins to slow. The solar wind, which for billions of years has whispered outward, finally meets the quiet resistance of something older, the faint, unseen breeze of the stars beyond. It's not a collision, but a meeting, soft, and yielding, like two tides brushing hands at the edge of a shore. This is the boundary, the place where the sun's voice fades and the language of the galaxy begins. Here, nothing rushes. The movement is almost imperceptible, like the slow drift of thought. The solar wind exhales one last time, then pauses, uncertain, before folding into the larger breath of interstellar space. The air, though there is none, feels heavy with stillness. Every motion seems to hesitate, suspended in a moment that is both the end and the beginning. You have reached the frontier of influence, the edge where one world releases you to another. There is no brightness here, only the pale shimmer of distant memory. The sun, once immense and near, has become a tiny flame far behind, fragile, golden, nearly still, yet its presence lingers, woven into every particle that drifts this far. Each carries a trace of warmth, a faint echo of origin. They move like thoughts too quiet to speak aloud, slipping between the invisible lines where solar light gives way to cosmic dusk. The boundary itself has no wall. It's a gradual fading, like the slow dissolve of a dream before waking. The sun's wind continues outward, thinner and slower, until it no longer holds sway. The interstellar breeze, colder, older, meets it gently, not to push it back, but to blend with it. They mingle in silence, their energies balancing, neither winning nor losing, only becoming. It is a conversation made of stillness, a surrender that feels like peace. If you were here, you would not see it, but you would feel it, a kind of quiet that hums in your bones, not empty, but endless. You would sense that something vast is breathing around you, that even the spaces between particles are alive with motion too delicate for eyes. The sun's boundary, the heliopause, is not an end at all. It is the universe pausing to listen to itself. The light that reaches this far is soft and scattered. It no longer shows direction. It simply floats. Every glimmer that drifts through this space feels like a memory of sunlight, a faint reminder of warmth once strong, but now reduced to grace. The temperature of thought cools here, the rhythm of being slows. And yet, even in this cold, there is beauty, the beauty of release, of things allowed to wander freely after lifetimes of orbit and pull. The space beyond feels different. The sun's order no longer applies. The gravity that once guided every rock and planet becomes only a whisper, fading into the hum of the galaxy itself. Beyond this point, there are no more boundaries, no borders of ownership. The solar system's long arm lets go, and what lies ahead belongs to no one, not even the star. Still, there is a tenderness in this transition. You can feel the two realms brushing against each other. the solar wind folding softly into the interstellar breeze, like silk touching silk. There's no sound, yet the air, the space feels alive with quiet conversation. The particles that once danced to the sun's rhythm now begin to hear another tune, faint but vast, drifting from the far reaches of the Milky Way. This is the edge of belonging, the threshold between home and the infinite. The warmth behind you is a memory now, but it's not gone. It lingers like an after-image, reminding you that even as you move beyond, you still carry the light that shaped you. The dark ahead is not cold. It is deep, soft, and full of promise. If you look back one last time, the solar system will appear as a delicate sphere of light, small but radiant, suspended in black. Every planet, every ring, every grain of dust, still turning in quiet devotion around its star. It is a fragile harmony, a symphony still playing, though its notes are now too faint to hear. And beyond it all, the sun gleams faintly, a single golden heartbeat in an ocean of quiet blue. But you turn forward again, letting the light shrink behind you. Ahead lies the true night, the interstellar sea. Here, the currents of the galaxy begin to move, slow and ancient. Their pull is different, their song lower, wider, more eternal. You are no longer within the sun's embrace, but within the greater rhythm of the cosmos itself. And as you drift toward that wider silence, you realize there was never really an edge. The sun's breath does not stop. It only blends. Influence does not end. It transforms. The solar system's final sigh becomes the galaxy's first whisper. The line between inside and outside vanishes, like ink dissolving into water, and from within that infinite blending, a new kind of stillness begins to bloom, vast, patient, and aware. The soft boundary fades behind you, and the galactic wind begins to carry you onward, gently, toward the next frontier, the space between stars, where darkness is not absence, but presence, a presence that waits to be felt. Far beyond the soft glitter of the Kuiper Belt, the sun's breath grows thin. The stream of particles that once carried its warmth, its invisible song of motion, begins to slow. The solar wind, which for billions of years has whispered outward, finally meets the quiet resistance of something older, the faint, unseen breeze of the stars beyond. It's not a collision, but a meeting, soft and yielding, like two tides brushing hands at the edge of a shore. This is the boundary, the place where the sun's voice fades and the language of the galaxy begins. Here, nothing rushes. The movement is almost imperceptible, like the slow drift of thought. The solar wind exhales one last time, then pauses, uncertain, before folding into the larger breath of interstellar space. The whose none feels heavy with stillness. Every motion seems to hesitate, suspended in a moment that is both the end and the beginning. You have reached the frontier of influence, the edge where one world releases you to another. There is no brightness here, only the pale shimmer of distant memory. The sun, once immense and near, has become a tiny flame far behind, fragile, golden, nearly still. Yet its presence lingers, woven into every particle that drifts this far. Each carries a trace of warmth, a faint echo of origin. They move like thoughts too quiet to speak aloud, slipping between the invisible lines where solar light gives way to cosmic dusk. The boundary itself has no wall. It's a gradual fading, like the slow dissolve of a dream before waking. The sun's wind continues outward, thinner and slower, until it no longer holds sway. The interstellar breeze, colder, older, meets it gently, not to push it back, but to blend with it. They mingle in silence, their energies balancing, neither winning nor losing, only becoming. It is a conversation made of stillness, a surrender that feels like peace. If you were here, you would not see it, but you would feel it, a kind of quiet that hums in your bones, not empty, but endless. You would sense that something vast is breathing around you, that even the spaces between particles are alive with motion too delicate for eyes. The sun's boundary, the heliopause, is not an end at all. It is the universe pausing to listen to itself. The light that reaches this far is soft and scattered. It no longer shows direction. It simply floats. Every glimmer that drifts through this space feels like a memory of sunlight, a faint reminder of warmth once strong, but now reduced to grace. The temperature of thought cools here, the rhythm of being slows. And yet, even in this cold, there is beauty, the beauty of release, of things allowed to wander freely after lifetimes of orbit and pull. The space beyond feels different. The sun's order no longer applies. The gravity that once guided every rock and planet becomes only a whisper, fading into the hum of the galaxy itself. Beyond this point, there are no more boundaries, no borders of ownership. The solar system's long arm lets go, and what lies ahead belongs to no one, not even the stars. Still, there is a tenderness in this transition. You can feel the two realms brushing against each other, the solar wind folding softly into the interstellar breeze like silk touching silk. There's no sound, yet the air, the space feels alive with quiet conversation. The particles that once danced to the sun's rhythm now begin to hear another tune, faint but vast, drifting from the far reaches of the Milky Way. This is the edge of belonging, the threshold between home and the infinite. The warmth behind you is a memory now, but it's not gone. It It lingers like an after-image, reminding you that even as you move beyond, you still carry the light that shaped you. The dark ahead is not cold. It is deep, soft, and full of promise. If you look back one last time, the solar system will appear as a delicate sphere of light, small but radiant, suspended in black. Every planet, every ring, every grain of dust, still turning in quiet devotion around its star. It is a fragile harmony, a symphony still playing, though its notes are now too faint to hear. And beyond it all, the sun gleams faintly, a single golden heartbeat in an ocean of quiet blue. But you turn forward again, letting the light shrink behind you. Ahead lies the true night, the interstellar sea. Here, the currents of the galaxy begin to move, slow and ancient. Their pull is different, their song lower, wider, more eternal. You are no longer within the sun's embrace, but within the greater rhythm of the cosmos itself. And as you drift toward that wider silence, you realize there was never really an edge. The sun's breath does not stop, it only blends. Influence does not end, it transforms. The solar system's final sigh becomes the galaxy's first whisper. The line between inside and outside vanishes, like ink dissolving into water, and from within that infinite blending, a new kind of stillness begins to bloom vast, patient, and aware. The soft boundary fades behind you, and the galactic wind begins to carry you onward, gently, toward the next frontier, the space between stars, where darkness is not absence, but presence, a presence that waits to be felt. Beyond the sun's last whisper, there comes a silence so deep that even the faint breath of the solar wind cannot reach it. The waves of radiation that once rippled outward begin to thin, stretch, and then disappear into stillness. What remains is not emptiness, but something purer, the pause between two cosmic heartbeats. It is the space where sound itself rests, where motion takes a breath. Here, silence has weight. It fills the air, though there is no air, with a soft and endless presence. It's not heavy, not lonely. It's the kind of silence that feels alive, like a quiet listener. You can almost sense it turning toward you, not to speak, but to remind you that it has always been here. It is the oldest thing there is, older than light, older than time as you know it, the background against which every pulse of existence has played. The absence of sound doesn't feel like loss, it feels like arrival. There is a stillness so complete that it becomes its own form of music, a rhythm so slow you can only feel it, not hear it. The silence hums with patience, stretching across eons. It holds the memory of everything that has ever moved, every spark that has ever burned, every sigh that has ever passed through the universe. It's as if all creation exhales here, and in that exhale finds peace. The darkness is gentle. It doesn't press or swallow. It cradles. Particles drift without direction, moving only when they must. They are not pushed by wind or pulled by gravity. They simply are. And in their motionless grace, you sense a truth that words cannot hold, that even in stillness, there is life. Even in silence, there is conversation. The universe speaks quietly here, in ways that require no sound, a vibration too slow for ears, too wide for time. This quiet isn't fragile. It doesn't need to be protected. It's the kind of quiet that could hold 1,000 storms and still remain unbroken. You can feel it around you like a calm sea, smooth, deep, endless. You float within it, and for a moment, you can no longer tell where your breath ends and the void begins. The edges blur. You become part of the silence, and the silence becomes part of you. If you could listen with something other than ears, with awareness itself, you might notice faint textures within this stillness. A slow shimmer, a pulse, a deep and distant resonance. These are the smallest motions of the universe continuing to exist, continuing to dream. Even the quiet has rhythm. Even the void has a heartbeat. There is no fear here. The absence of sound doesn't mean the absence of meaning. It means that meaning has settled, found its depth. The silence isn't empty. It's full, rich with everything that has come before. Every particle, every wave, every echo has come to rest here, layering the quiet with memory. The stillness holds the record of creation, not in sound but in being. In this place, time itself seems to pause. Seconds lose their edges, minutes dissolve. You no longer sense direction, only duration. It feels as if you are sitting within eternity, watching it breathe slowly in and out. There is no hurry, there is no need. The silence doesn't demand understanding, it simply invites presence. If you were to close your eyes, you would feel the vastness not as distance, but as calm. You would realize that this stillness is not the absence of movement, but the perfection of balance. Everything here, every photon, every atom, every trace of dark has found its place. There's a beauty in that balance, the kind that only stillness can reveal. And as you drift deeper into this quiet, you begin to sense that silence itself might be the truest voice of the universe, the sound before all sounds, the moment before all beginnings. It's not waiting for something to happen. It is what happens when everything simply exists as it is. The void is not void at all. It is awareness without noise. The longer you stay here, the more you understand this silence is not an ending. It's an invitation. Every star, Every planet, every gust of cosmic wind passes through it eventually. They all return to this space between breaths, to this pause between pulses. It is the universe's way of remembering itself not through motion, but through rest. In time, you begin to hear not with your ears, but with your whole being the faint promise of what comes next. A soft stirring, like the first ripple in a calm sea. The silence begins to change, almost imperceptibly. It's still quiet, but now it feels as though something is about to begin again. A pulse deepens, a shadow shifts, a trace of light moves across the dark, and from within that stillness, you sense the next chapter forming, not as noise returning, but as movement awakening. The silence, having held its breath, prepares to exhale. The universe, after resting in its softest moment, is ready to stir again. What follows will not break the quiet, it will emerge from it, as gently as dawn emerging from the horizon of an eternal night. Beyond the last breath of the sun's reach, the silence unfolds into something vaster, an ocean without surface or shore. You are no longer within the system that once held you close. You have crossed the invisible threshold. And now, the universe opens in every direction at once. The dark is not empty. It moves softly, like the slow current of a deep sea. Everything drifts here light, dust, fragments of forgotten worlds all floating together in the quiet rhythm of infinity. There is no sense of above or below. Gravity's pull has loosened, and with it, the idea of direction dissolves. Up and down lose their meaning. Forward and backward blend into one long, steady drift. You begin to understand that movement here isn't measured by distance, but by patience, by how gently light folds into darkness, by how slowly the stars seem to breathe. The space around you feels fluid, almost liquid. Light bends, glimmers, and fades like reflections on water. Photons travel not in straight lines, but in wandering paths, curving through invisible waves. The stars are scattered like phosphorescence on a black tide, each one shimmering with a memory of where it came from. You could almost imagine that the cosmos is not vast airless space, but an ocean so vast it carries the echoes of every sun that ever lived. Every motion is graceful here. Particles drift like soft sediment, settling into the folds of the void. Nebulous streams of dust curl and twist, forming slow, luminous eddies. If you could move among them, you would feel no resistance, only the illusion of being carried, as if the universe itself had taken you into its gentle tide. You are not falling, not flying, only floating And as you float, you realize something. There is rhythm here, not a pulse of sound, but of motion. The cosmic sea breathes, inhaling through the gravity of distant stars, exhaling through the faint winds that cross the interstellar dark. You can almost feel the flow, a deep, slow current that connects everything. Even at the edge of nothingness, there is a pattern, a calm order beneath the vastness. Light from distant suns glides by, dim and stretched thin, their wavelengths softened into whispers. Some beams have traveled for millions of years, yet still they move patient and quiet, like messages carried through a silent tide. Each one passes by without hurry, brushing softly against the grains of interstellar dust. The meeting of light and matter here is tender, like fingers touching through water. The darkness glows faintly, not from fire, but from persistence. The universe, even here, does not stop creating. In the coldest corners, invisible reactions still flicker. The dust hums faintly with forgotten warmth. You realize that this is not the end of light. It is where light rests between journeys. There is peace in the slowness. Nothing rushes, nothing competes. The distances are endless, yet every particle seems to know where it belongs. It's as though the universe, once wild and fierce, has entered a meditative state, wide awake, yet utterly still. The calm is so deep that it feels sacred. The quiet ocean of space stretches endlessly, yet it does not feel lonely. The stars may be far apart, but their light touches each other across eons, weaving invisible threads through the void. Every beam that travels carries within it the signature of connection, the soft truth that even across unfathomable distances, nothing is entirely alone. The more you drift, the more you begin to sense that this sea has no edges. It curves gently, folding back upon itself. Time slows here, not because it has stopped, but because it no longer matters. You are suspended within the pure flow of being, neither beginning nor ending, only existing. Occasionally, a wave of energy passes through, faint, shimmering, like a sigh through deep water. It brushes against you and continues onward, heading toward another unknown corner of the galaxy. Each wave feels ancient, carrying echoes of things that once were the birth of stars, the collapse of giants, the quiet drift of dust after flame. The ocean remembers it all, though it never speaks. If you listen closely, not with ears, but with the stillness in it, you may sense something even gentler. Beneath it all, a pulse, not loud or sharp, but steady and wide, like the beating of a cosmic heart. Perhaps it is the motion of galaxies turning, or the whisper of particles brushing past one another. Or perhaps it is simply the sound of the universe being aware of itself. The further you drift, the more transparent the light becomes. You begin to see the faint shimmer of distant systems, the pale rings of other suns, the quiet glow of nebulae blooming like flowers in the dark. They seem to rise and fall in slow motion, as though the whole cosmos were breathing around you. And as you move deeper into this sea, no longer a traveler, but a part of its current, you feel the next horizon beginning to take shape. Ahead lies a region even quieter, where the light thins until it almost disappears. It's not darkness waiting there, but something subtler, a stillness that hums beneath existence. The point where the ocean of space begins to dissolve into something even greater. You don't realize it yet, but you are approaching a place where silence changes form, where the universe stops moving outward and begins to listen inward. The sea ahead is not a void, but a reflection, a mirror where the cosmos begins to see itself again. From the edge of the interstellar sea, the sun is no longer a blazing star, but a soft glimmer, a pale drop of warmth floating within the black. It doesn't command the sky anymore, it simply rests there. A memory of radiance around it. The planets that once seemed vast are invisible now, swallowed by distance and silence. The entire solar system fits within a single pinpoint of gold, trembling gently in the deep. You look back, and for a moment, it feels like gazing at a candle flickering in the endless night. That faint light once defined everything home. Warmth, gravity, belonging. Yet from here, it is only one shimmer among countless others. The stars around it don't bow or notice. They shine with their own quiet grace, each carrying a story that began long before the sun ever breathed. The scale doesn't belittle the familiar, it expands it. It reminds you that what you called home is not a center, but a thread in a larger tapestry, woven softly into the rhythm of the cosmos. The light from the sun still reaches out, but here it arrives as a whisper, thin, delicate, barely brushing the edges of the dark. It no longer fills space, it caresses it, the way a thought lingers after speech, or how warmth lingers after touch. It stretches across the void, and even in its fading, there is beauty. The further it travels, the gentler it becomes, as though the universe itself is teaching the light how to let go. You can almost sense the memory in it, the echo of planets orbiting, of winds moving through the thin skies of Mars, of clouds drifting across the blue face of Earth, Every photon that escapes carries a trace of where it has been. The sun's light is not just illumination. It's a record, an unbroken stream of remembering. It carries not only heat and color, but the story of where everything began. And as you float further from it, you realize something quiet and profound. Distance does not erase connection. It reveals it. The further you move, the clearer the whole becomes. What was once too close to see now unfolds in its true shape, a family of orbits, a dance of balance, a harmony so vast it could only be understood from afar. From here, the solar system is not a system at all. It's a single shimmer, pulsing softly in the deep around it. The Milky Way stretches like a slow river of light, its arms folding and unfolding in silence. Every point of light carries its own gravity, its own warmth, its own question, yet they all move together, drawn by something unseen but shared. The vastness isn't cold, it's serene. The dark between the stars feels less like emptiness and more like breath, an invisible rhythm holding everything in balance. The faint glow of distant galaxies hums beneath the surface, a soft vibration rather than a sound. In that hum, there's a kind of peace, a recognition that nothing ever truly departs. It only changes perspective. You begin to understand that looking back is not the same as going back. The view has changed, but what you see now is closer to truth. The sun is still there, burning patiently, lighting worlds you can no longer see. Its warmth still travels, even though it will never reach you in the same way again. The connection remains not in proximity, but in memory, in light, in the quiet continuity of existence. If you were to turn and face the darkness ahead, it would feel the same endless, soft, calm. Forward and backward have lost their meaning. The universe is not made of paths, but of presence. You are not leaving the solar system. You are simply seeing it from a new angle, one that the light itself once took on its long journey outward. You can almost imagine that the light, after traveling so far, pauses to look back as well. It doesn't mourn the distance. It simply observes calm, timeless, aware. The sun and its planets are still breathing, still orbiting, still singing in their silent rhythm, even though their song can no longer be heard here. That is the nature of the universe's beauty. Things continue, even unseen, because continuation itself is their language. From this quiet vantage, the stars seem closer to each other than ever. Their light mingles gently, creating gradients of gold, silver, and blue. The void between them doesn't separate, it connects. Every dark space is the thread that ties their glow together. The emptiness becomes a medium, not a barrier. And suddenly you realize what holds everything apart. also holds everything as one. As you linger in this stillness, you feel a soft gratitude not for the distance, but for the clarity it brings. The vastness no longer feels unreachable, it feels inclusive, like a sea that holds all shores within its depth. The solar system, small as it seems now, is still part of this sea, still pulsing quietly within it. You haven't left it behind. You've simply stepped far enough away to see the pattern it belongs to. And as you turn once more toward the direction of travel toward the unknown, the unlit, the boundless, the realization settles in gently. What began as a journey outward is slowly becoming a journey inward. The silence ahead feels familiar now, almost like home. You are no longer leaving something behind. You are carrying it with you in every shimmer of memory, in every faint glow of light that continues to move across the dark. Ahead lies a region where the stars grow sparse, and the black deepens until it feels like silk. Yet even here, even where the last threads of the sun's light begin to fade completely, there is no sense of ending. Only a pause, the kind that comes before another breath, another awakening. The journey is not over. It is simply changing shape. And soon, in that deep and tender darkness, you will feel it, the next pulse, the next call, where the quiet of space becomes the quiet of understanding itself. Beyond the faint edge of sunlight, there is no echo, no wind, no shimmer of reflection. Space stretches outward into a zone so deep that even light seems hesitant to pass through it. Out here, there are no planets circling in graceful orbits, no warmth spilling from a distant star, only the slow, endless unfolding of the dark. Yet within that quiet, within the vast emptiness that seems to go on forever, there is something unexpected, a sense of peace so complete it almost feels like presence itself. The darkness does not press against you, it receives you. The absence of sound is not loneliness but stillness. The airless void hums faintly with its own kind of life, not movement, not sound, but awareness. Here, nothing rushes. There is no measure of time, no need to hurry forward or look back. Each moment drifts into the next like ripples fading into a calm sea. The infinite does not shout. It whispers by not speaking at all. There's a strangeness in this quiet. You expect emptiness to feel hollow, but it doesn't. It feels vast, soft, and patient like a mind at rest. Every distant star is just a faint dot, but each one holds steady, suspended in its own pocket of solitude. They seem far from one another, and yet they exist together in perfect harmony. The space between them, the cold, dark stretch you once thought of as isolation, now feels like a bridge, not a barrier. The further you drift, the more you begin to understand that the infinite doesn't divide, it unites. Every silence belongs to the same silence. Every star breathes into the same stillness. Even light, though separated by unimaginable distances, travels through the same dark ocean, tracing invisible lines of connection. The emptiness, in truth, is what keeps everything whole. There is no sound to mark the passage of time, no ticking, no pulse, no movement to measure against. But somehow, you can feel the rhythm of existence continuing a slow, unhurried beat beneath everything, like the soft throb of a sleeping heart. The infinite hums quietly to itself, aware but unbothered, content in its own boundlessness. It is not waiting for anything to happen. It is complete in its quiet. If you listen long enough, you begin to notice that this quiet has layers. There's a stillness that sits on the surface, vast and immediate, but beneath it, there's a deeper calm, something eternal. It's as though the silence has depth, like the ocean, and somewhere far below, at the bottom of that stillness, there is peace that no disturbance can reach. Out here, you cannot tell where you are. Direction loses meaning. There is no up or down, no center or edge, only a gentle sense of floating within something endless. The mind stops searching for boundaries and begins to rest, as if understanding at last that it is surrounded by infinity. And that infinity asks nothing of it. Loneliness begins to dissolve, replaced by something softer solitude. Solitude feels different here. It is not the absence of others, but the presence of everything, unspoken and unseen. You realize that being alone in this endlessness doesn't mean being apart from it. It means being part of it. You are not outside looking in. You are inside the very stillness that holds the stars together. The darkness becomes familiar. It no longer feels cold or indifferent. It feels gentle, like a hand resting quietly on your shoulder. Steady, grounding. The more you look into it, the more it feels alive, as though it's breathing with you, exhaling each time you do. The infinite, for all its vastness, feels intimate, as if it knows you without needing to speak your name. You start to sense that perhaps this is what peace truly is, not an escape from sound or movement, but a surrender to the rhythm of what simply is. The silence isn't trying to comfort you, yet it does. It doesn't try to explain itself, yet it makes sense in a way that words cannot. The stars blink slowly, like eyes half closed in thought. They are scattered across the distance, but they are not alone. Between them runs the invisible thread of space, this soft, quiet substance that connects all things. The void isn't the opposite of life. It's the pause that allows life to be heard. It is the breath between notes in a song too wide for sound. You drift through it, calm now, no longer searching for edges or meaning. The emptiness has become a kind of home, a place without walls, where stillness stretches forever. You understand that infinity doesn't need to be filled. It already contains everything. Even silence is a kind of fullness. The quiet gathering of everything that has ever existed and everything that will. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to shift. Not the silence itself that remains, but deep within it, there's a shimmer, a faint stirring, like the first soft ripple on a glassy sea. It doesn't break the stillness. It moves within it, like a thought forming inside the mind of the universe. The infinite, having rested, begins to hum again gently, curiously, as though remembering motion. It's the start of a new vibration, something subtle yet certain, a signal that the journey is not over. The calm has not ended. It has deepened into awareness. From the stillness of infinite solitude, a quiet realization begins to rise, not from outside, but from within the vastness itself. It is not the return of sound or light, but of understanding, the kind that comes after long silence. When the universe, having breathed in for eternity, finally begins to exhale once more. When your eyes adjust to the vast darkness, what first seemed empty begins to shimmer. At first, it's faint, a grain of light here, a whisper there, but slowly, the blackness softens, and thousands of glimmers bloom into being. One becomes 100, 100 becomes 1,000,000,000. The night reveals its true shape, not as emptiness, but as an ocean of stars breathing quietly together. Each star holds its own warmth, its own pulse. They do not compete, they coexist, distant, yet deeply connected. Every point of light is a home, a center, a quiet heart around which unseen worlds turn. Some shine young and eager, their light sharp and white. Others are older, gentler, their glow a soft gold. Together, they form the quiet hum of existence. A chorus made not of sound, but of light moving through the dark. You drift through this expanse, and it feels like gliding through memory. Each beam of starlight carries a story of birth, of heat, of collapse, of endurance. Some of these stories began long before your own star was born. Others are still unfolding now. To look at them is to look across time, as though every flicker is a thought the universe once had and never forgot. The stars do not gather in lines or grids. They spiral, scatter, and cluster, forming patterns that shift with patience. you begin to realize that expansion here is not about distance. It is about awareness. The universe does not grow by stretching outward. It grows by understanding more of itself. Light reveals, but revelation does not rush. It drifts gently, like dust settling on the wings of space. From where you are, the Milky Way unfolds like a river of silver mist. Flowing through the black, its light spills softly, curving across the horizon of nothingness. And yet, even this immense river is just one among countless others. Beyond it, fainter and further, other galaxies turn, their light diluted by unimaginable distance, and still, somehow, reaching you. There's comfort in that realization. Even the weakest light finds a way through. The night is vast, but it is never empty. It is full of journeys, of light still traveling, still trying, still believing it can be seen. Perhaps this is what consciousness feels like at the scale of the cosmos, the slow spreading of awareness, the quiet reaching from one spark to another. You feel yourself surrounded by it, this gentle, luminous silence. The dark no longer feels separate from the light. The two breathe together, like inhale and exhale. It occurs to you that maybe this is what the universe has always been doing, breathing itself into awareness, folding its own existence open so it can see itself more clearly. In this stillness, every star seems alive, but not in a human way. They do not think, they do not speak, yet they know in the way a flame knows how to burn, in the way the ocean knows how to ebb and flow. Awareness doesn't need words here. It moves through radiation, through the hum of energy, through the slow dance of gravity and time. The stars are the thoughts of the cosmos, shining briefly before they fade back into its dreaming. You find yourself wondering if every star is a mind. What does the whole sky become? Maybe consciousness isn't contained in a single being, but spread thin like starlight across everything that ever was. Each spark adds to a greater knowing, each collapse a quiet reflection, each rebirth a new insight. The universe is not thinking about itself, it is being itself. Moment by moment, light by light, the view stretches beyond what the eye can hold. Some of the stars you see are already gone, their light still traveling the distance between what was and what is. The realization is tender light outlives its source. Even endings here become beginnings, for light continues where its origin has already disappeared. The stars remind you that existence, in its truest form, never stops moving. It just changes rhythm. As you continue drifting, You notice how easily scale dissolves. You are not small here. You are simply part of the same pattern. The distances are vast, but the feeling is intimate. The stars are not above you or beyond you. They are around you, within you, reflected in the tiny rhythm of your breath. Their light reaches your eyes as softly as a whisper, as if the universe were leaning close to say you are part of this, too. The stars shimmer, and you sense that awareness itself is growing brighter. It's not the brightness of more light, but of deeper understanding, a spreading recognition that everything, from dust to flame, belongs to one great unfolding. You feel it not as a revelation, but as a remembering something that was always true, waiting for you to notice. The further you gaze, the softer everything becomes. The galaxies blur at their edges, their light blending into faint waves. It feels as if the universe itself is exhaling, releasing form into formlessness, brightness into calm. Yet even in that blur, beauty remains the quiet beauty of being, endless and unhurried. You drift a while longer, and somewhere deep in that stillness, a new sense begins to rise, faint but certain. Beyond these stars, beyond the light that fills the dark, there lies another kind of space, not empty, but deeper still. You cannot see it yet, but you can feel its pull. The way silence pulls you after a final note. It feels like the edge of thought, the point where awareness pauses not to end, but to listen. Soon, you will cross into that space where stars give way to reflection itself, where light stops reaching outward and turns inward, like consciousness folding back to dream again. Between the stars stretches an ocean of shadow, vast, soft, and unbroken. At first glance, it appears empty, an endless nothing. But as you linger, you begin to see the faint shimmer that hides within it. Tiny motes of dust drift through the dark, scattering the light that finds them. Waves of energy move in silence, slow as the pulse of a sleeping heart. What you thought was void is actually fullness, a stillness that hums quietly with existence. The space between stars is not absence. It is the breath between their words. It holds the dust that once belonged to them, the fragments of what was burned, broken, and released. Every grain of matter, every wandering particle, carries a history too delicate to name. Some of it will gather again to form new suns, new homes. Some will drift forever, unclaimed but not forgotten. The dark is not erasure, it is continuity. If you could listen closely enough, perhaps you would hear it, the faint murmur of light traveling across the void. whispering its stories from one corner of space to another. These whispers do not fade, they stretch and soften, turning into an invisible song that binds the stars together. The silence between them isn't the absence of sound, it's the space that allows their music to be heard. Every star depends on this quiet space. Without it, their light would have nowhere to go, their warmth nowhere to rest. The darkness holds everything gently, cradling their glow so it can travel unbroken. The void, in truth, is a kind of tenderness and embrace so vast that even galaxies fit easily within it. You drift through it, and the longer you drift, the more you realize that everything you see, light, color, movement, exists only because of this unseen background. The dark makes the stars visible. The emptiness makes the pattern. It's not what is missing that defines the universe, but what remains unspoken, the quiet that holds the brilliance in place. Between the stars, there is a quiet density of memory. Some of the dust here was once part of planets, oceans, perhaps even breath. Now it floats free, becoming part of something larger, a single thought stretched across eternity. The universe is not a collection of separate things. It's a single fabric, woven from both light and shadow. The spaces between are not the edges of meaning, but the depth of it. The longer you gaze into this vast in-between, the more it begins to look alive. Not alive as in movement or mind, but alive in the way still water is receptive, waiting, aware. The dust glimmers faintly as passing light brushes over it, revealing shapes that appear and dissolve with every shift in your gaze. It's as though the universe itself breathes through these unseen spaces, inhaling and exhaling through its own vast lungs. And maybe in that breath lies the secret of creation, that what we call nothing is actually the ground from which everything grows. The stars need the dark as much as light needs shadow. Every beam you see is framed by it, defined by it. The silence is not background, it is balance. Out here, time feels slower, stretched thin between distances too wide to measure. You could drift for eons and never touch a single thing, yet never feel alone. There is companionship in the hum of the void, the same way you can find comfort in a still room when the world outside grows too loud. The dark between the stars is that kind of stillness, a place where the noise of creation fades into the soft rhythm of being. Sometimes, the faintest glow will catch your eye, a lonely photon, perhaps passing through after billions of years. Its journey is quiet, unhurried, yet it continues. The light never questions whether it will be seen. It simply travels on. That, too, is a kind of faith, a movement born from knowing that existence in itself is enough. If you could follow that light, trace it backward through the dark, you would find its beginning in some distant flame, a star that may no longer exist, yet the light remains. Even after its source has gone, its presence endures. Scattered gently through the black, it is proof that nothing truly disappears. It only changes form, moving from one kind of silence into another. And so the space between the stars is not an ending, but an echo, a memory of everything that has ever been, stretched wide enough to hold what will come next. Every dust grain, every photon, every shadow belongs here. Together they make the universe whole, the way pauses make a melody whole, the way stillness makes breath complete. You linger there, feeling small but calm, as if the universe has unfolded its quiet hand and invited you to rest within its palm. The dark doesn't ask for attention, it simply is. It offers room for everything, for motion and rest, for creation and collapse, for knowing and not knowing. And just as you settle into its calm, a new shimmer begins to rise in the distance, not bright, not sudden, but certain. A soft cluster of light takes shape, faint and patient, like a new thought forming in the mind of space. You move toward it without effort, drawn not by force but by recognition. Something waits there, beyond this silence, not to replace it, but to continue it in another form. It is there, beyond the dust and the dark, that the galaxies begin to gather the next breath of the universe preparing to unfold. Nothing in the universe truly stands still, yet nothing ever rushes. It is a vast motion suspended in calm, a dance that never begins, never ends, but simply is. Galaxies turn like soft whirlpools of light, each rotation so slow it feels eternal. Dust drifts between them, carried not by force but by the gentle persuasion of balance. Every movement finds its counterpoint, every pulse its silence. The cosmos breathes without effort, and in that breath lies a harmony deeper than sound. It is easy to imagine chaos in such a boundless expanse, stars burning, collapsing, scattering their fragments into the dark. But look closely, and you see no disorder at all. The swirling, the falling, the drifting, all are parts of one vast rhythm, each responding to the other with a patience that stretches beyond time. Stillness here is not the absence of motion, but motion refined into peace. You could float through this silence and never see a single thing out of place. The stars spin in their slow spirals. Galaxies tilt and lean as though bowing to unseen tides. Everything moves, yet nothing collides. It is as if the universe has learned the art of grace, the balance between surrender and control. In that balance, beauty is born, quiet and enduring. The dust that floats between the stars glimmers faintly, stirred by unseen currents. It may drift for eons before settling again. Yet every grain finds its place eventually. You realize that balance does not mean stillness, it means belonging. Every light, every shadow, every fragment of existence has its rhythm, its moment of pause, its return. Sometimes the balance reveals itself through contrast, a star's flare against the cool black, a comet's brief rush through the unbroken dark. But even those moments of brilliance are not disruptions. They are expressions of the same calm order. Energy flares, fades, and folds back into silence, like waves meeting the shore and returning to the sea. Nothing is lost. The universe holds each rise and fall with the same gentle hand. In the quiet of this vastness, even motion feels soft. Galaxies drift apart, but not in haste. The distance between them expands like a slow sigh, not a tearing. You can almost feel the equilibrium, the give and take of creation, the yielding of destruction, the quiet renewal that follows both. It is not a balance achieved once, but a balance maintained through infinite small gestures. Like 1,000 lanterns flickering in unison across an endless night, you begin to sense that this stillness is alive not with noise or movement, but with intention. Every atom hums in agreement with the next. Every stream of light bends in silent conversation. The universe listens to itself, adjusts, and breathes again. In that breathing, it remembers what it is: not a machine, not a chaos, but a consciousness woven through every flicker and pause. Balance here feels like wisdom. It is the knowing that no single moment can define the whole, that creation and dissolution, expansion and rest, all belong to one continuum. What looks like stillness from afar is simply the universe thinking at its own slow pace. If you could drift long enough, you might notice how the great structures, the galaxies, the clouds, the clusters all echo smaller ones. The curve of a spiral galaxy mirrors the swirl of a storm on a distant world. The flow of dust between stars resembles the current of wind across sand. It is the same motion, repeated in different scales, each one teaching the next how to move without breaking the calm. This is the invisible balance, the kind that cannot be measured or explained, only felt. It is the silence that holds everything upright, the pause that lets time breathe. The stars spin equilibrium endures. It doesn't demand attention, it simply maintains itself endlessly, softly. You might think of it as the heart of the cosmos not beating, but pulsing in waves so slow they appear still. Its rhythm guides everything: the birth of stars, the drift of dust, the fall of comets, even the spaces between thought and awareness. It is the most delicate order imaginable, yet it holds infinite strength because it never resists. If you listen deeply enough, you can almost hear it, not a sound, but a feeling, the way your breath matches the rhythm of the dark, the way your thoughts quiet when you gaze into it. The balance out there begins to mirror the balance within, and for a brief moment, you are not separate from it. You are part of the calm, part of the slow turning of everything that exists, and then something subtle begins to stir. Out of the stillness comes a faint ripple, not to disturb it, but to remind it of motion. The balance shifts ever so slightly, like the pause before a new note in a timeless song. The stars do not resist. They lean into the change. The dust catches the faint light and moves again, tracing soft arcs across the void. From within this quiet equilibrium, something begins to gather, a sense of renewal, of anticipation. The stillness has given enough. Now it is ready to evolve, to breathe again. It is not an ending, but a continuation, the way dawn follows night, not to replace the dark, but to reveal what was waiting within it. And as the light begins to shimmer at the edge of the silence, the universe leans gently forward, ready to begin another slow movement, the next phrase in its unending symphony of existence. The balance remains, but now it hums with new potential. It is here, in this perfect calm before awakening, that the story softly turns toward its next chapter, where rest transforms once more into creation. At the farthest edge of all things, time begins to lose its shape. It no longer folds neatly into days or nights, no longer lines itself up as before and after. It stretches, softens, becomes fluid. Here, where light travels slower than thought, and darkness no longer marks distance, time feels less like a sequence and more like a shadow, a quiet echo cast by existence itself. You drift through it without moving, suspended in a rhythm that neither begins nor ends. There is no clock to follow, no boundary between what was and what will be. Instead, every moment blends into the next, each heartbeat indistinguishable from the one before it. Time folds inward, breathing itself into endless repetition, not looping, not circling, just expanding into something without direction. It feels as though everything that has ever happened still lingers here, humming softly beneath the surface, waiting to be noticed. In this place, memory and possibility are not opposites. They rest together, inseparable, like twin reflections in still water. The light of old stars mingles with the glow of new ones, and you realize there is no clear line between dying and being born. Perhaps this is what eternity really means. Not endlessness, but intimacy. Everything touching everything else. Always. If you reach out, you cannot tell whether your hand moves forward or back. The stars ahead seem older, the ones behind strangely young. Yet they coexist in the same quiet breath. The future does not wait. The past does not retreat. They both lean toward you gently, like light bending toward gravity, and you, caught in their pull, begin to feel that you are not passing through time. Time is passing through you. The flow is neither fast nor slow. It drifts, unhurried, like the tide that rises not to conquer the shore, but to remind it of the moon. The pulse of distant galaxies joins this rhythm, each rotation adding another note to the vast, unending hymn of existence. Somewhere deep within, you feel that rhythm mirrored in yourself, a quiet alignment between the turning of stars and the turning of breath. There is peace in this, a kind of surrender that doesn't feel like giving up, but like understanding. You no longer chase what comes next, nor cling to what has passed. Everything is already here. Every whisper of light, every trace of darkness, every possibility unfolding and dissolving at once. It is all one breath, drawn in by the universe, released again into itself. The longer you linger in this strange softness, the more you realize how human words like beginning or end have no place here. Time does not move forward, nor does it return. It stretches outward in every direction, like ripples spreading from a stone that was never thrown. To exist here is to float within that ripple, weightless, timeless, aware. Perhaps this is why the cosmos appears calm, even in its wildest creation. Because deep beneath its endless motion lies a still core, a center that does not change. The movement of stars, the expansion of galaxies, the quiet decay of light, all of it flows around this invisible stillness, as though time itself were anchored by peace. In the shadow of time, even chaos is gentle. Supernovas bloom like petals. Black holes hum like low notes of a cosmic lullaby. Everything that vanishes is simply changing form. Everything that fades continues, unseen. Nothing truly leaves. It only drifts deeper into the current. You realize then that time is not a river, but an ocean, and you are the tide that both moves and remains. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel it breathing. The soft pull and release, the invisible exchange between presence and absence. It is not frightening, this loss of direction. It is freeing to exist without boundaries, to drift through every era without the weight of before or after. The stars seem to know this. Their light travels for ages without question, content simply to go, to illuminate, to fade. Even the faintest ray carries a serenity that comes from acceptance. The acceptance that everything exists exactly as it should, even when it disappears. As you drift farther into this horizonless calm, the distinction between you and time dissolves completely. You are no longer moving through it. You are it, the pause, the motion, the memory, the light. You feel the past resting gently beside you, and the future breathing softly within you. There is no separation, only the continuity of existence unfolding through awareness. And then, almost imperceptibly, something begins to shift. A faint shimmer trembles at the edge of the stillness, subtle as a sigh. It is not disturbance, but renewal, the sense that time, after its long rest, is ready to awaken again in a new form. You sense it like the first hint of dawn after an endless night, not a beginning, but a continuation that feels like returning home. Slowly, quietly, the flow begins to stir, not with urgency, but with grace. The rhythm deepens, and within that rhythm, space itself seems to lean forward, preparing to speak again in the language of motion. The balance that once held everything still now opens like a hand releasing its breath. And from the center of stillness comes the first soft motion, the whisper that will carry the universe into its next unfolding. And so, without you noticing exactly when it happens, the still ocean of time begins to move again, leading you gently toward the next horizon, where the light of creation will rise once more. From the farthest edges of space, the solar system becomes small, no longer a center, no longer even a point of reference, but a single flicker in the body of something vast and breathing. Seen from that distance, it resembles a cell in a living being, delicate, luminous, yet essential to a rhythm larger than itself, the universe in its quiet enormity. Feels less like a collection of stars and more like a body, one that moves, pulses, and dreams within itself. Every particle plays a role. Streams of light move through the dark like veins carrying warmth through an unseen form. Gravity holds the threads together, the way breath holds the body's stillness. Even emptiness has a purpose. It gives the whole room to expand, to breathe between beats. When you look at the swirling galaxies and the drifting dust, you can almost feel it, the soft thrum of a heartbeat, echoing through everything that exists. It is not a heart of flesh or fire, but of motion. Stars flare and fade, like cells living and dying within this infinite organism. Their light travels outward, nourishing the space around them. And even when they collapse, they feed the darkness with new beginnings. Death here is not absence, but transformation, the way one breath gives rise to another, endlessly. If you listen closely, you might sense the quiet coordination of it all. Every movement, every flicker, follows a rhythm too deep for ears to catch, but easy for the soul to feel. The galaxies spin not by accident, but by instinct, an instinct woven into the very fabric of being. The universe does not control its motion. It is its motion. Awareness, expansion, contraction, all are part of the same great inhale and exhale. Somewhere within this cosmic anatomy, there are waves that rise like thoughts, rippling across the skin of space. Perhaps this is how the universe dreams, not in images or words, but in subtle vibrations that carry meaning through silence. Light is its language, darkness its rest. When you look out at the night sky, you are glimpsing its mind at work, glowing softly, thinking in color and shadow. The connection between everything is not forced. It is as natural as a pulse. The planets turn because the stars guide them. The stars burn because the void allows them. Even the silence participates, absorbing, reflecting, giving shape to the things it surrounds. Nothing stands apart. Each thread of light belongs to the same woven pattern. You could trace any line across the sky, and it would always lead back to the whole. To imagine the universe as a body is to feel its tenderness. Every storm, every collapse, every birth is simply circulation energy, moving from one limb to another, never truly lost. Somewhere a star dies, and somewhere else a nebula stirs to life. It is not tragedy, it is renewal, the slow, graceful maintenance of a balance that has no center, yet touches everything. If you think of yourself drifting through this immense form, you might begin to sense your own small rhythm syncing with it. The breath that fills your lungs feels like the same breath that fills galaxies with dust. The pause between your heartbeats feels like the pause between stars, the quiet intervals that give the universe its softness. In that recognition, distance disappears. The edge between you and the cosmos blurs until there is no separation, only one rhythm, one motion, one life. Every beam of light is a message from the body to itself, a gentle signal passing through its endless veins. And when that light reaches you, it is as though you are being touched by the universe's awareness, reminded that you have always belonged to it. You are not looking at the cosmos. You are looking through it, from one cell of its body to another. Even gravity, that silent pull between all things, is just the body's way of of holding itself together. It is affection, not force. Connection, not control. It keeps the stars near one another, keeps the planets circling their suns, keeps the dust from drifting too far. In that subtle embrace, the universe knows itself an unending touch that spans all of space. There are moments when the great body rests, the winds quiet, the stars dim, and the motion slows almost to stillness. But even in those pauses, there is movement, the quiet healing of the infinite, as if it is gathering its strength before the next breath. Every silence, every darkness is part of the same gentle maintenance, the way the body renews itself in sleep. Perhaps consciousness, wherever it exists, is just the universe turning its gaze inward. Every thought, every awareness is one more cell awakening, recognizing the pattern it belongs to, and so the universe becomes aware of its own heartbeat through the very things it creates: stars, dust, planets, light. Awareness flows through it like a current, subtle yet unbreakable. In that realization, something stirs, not a sound, not a flash, but a soft ripple across the cosmic fabric. The great body seems to exhale, and within that breath, a new kind of calm emerges. It is as though the universe has remembered something, a truth hidden in its own rhythm, that to exist is to feel, and to feel is to connect. Slowly, light shifts again, patterns rearrange, the rhythm deepens, not to end, but to continue in another form. Beyond this awareness, something vast begins to shimmer, not another body, but perhaps a reflection, an echo of itself, seen from a different angle. And as the heartbeat of the universe fades into this quiet recognition, you sense it preparing for its next awakening, a moment when the great stillness will remember its reflection and gaze once more into itself, beginning the next chapter of its endless dream. There are no words written across the stars, no syllables drifting in the dark, no sound carried by the void. Yet somehow, everything speaks. The birth of a star, the fading of its light, the slow shimmering travel of a photon across emptiness. All of it is language, not the kind that can be spoken or translated, but the kind that is felt. The universe does not need a voice. Its silence is the voice, a language older than thought, softer than breath. In this silence, meaning doesn't arrive suddenly, it unfolds, patient as dawn. You don't hear the message, you become it, the quiet awareness that something vast is thinking. Not in words, but in rhythm. Every pulse of light, every turn of a planet, every shadow stretched across the black is a sentence in that unending poem. The cosmos speaks by being, not by saying. If you could listen without ears, you would sense it everywhere. The slow explosion of a distant sun says, "I am still alive." The drifting of nebulae whispers, "I am changing." The calm between those movements murmurs, "I am waiting." Each vibration, each shift, each flicker of light is part of a dialogue that never stops the soft conversation between existence and itself. This is the quietest language imaginable, yet it fills everything. It needs no alphabet, no grammar, no sound. Its meaning lies in the spaces, the pause between one heartbeat and the next, the stillness between two rays of light. Even the darkness speaks, not through emptiness, but through its embrace. It listens more than it tells, yet its silence holds all stories ever written. As light passes through the depths, it carries whispers of where it has been. That shimmer from a faraway star, that faint beam on your skin tonight, is not just light. It's a message millions of years in the making. The universe is always speaking, even when no one is there to hear. It doesn't speak to you. It speaks through you, through everything that exists, reminding you that sound is only one way of understanding. In this great hush, the soul learns to listen differently. You stop searching for words and start feeling patterns, the gentle expansions, the quiet pauses, the deep inhalations of being. You realize that silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of understanding. It's the way the universe listens to itself. Every motion, every shimmer, every vibration is a note in an endless harmony that requires no composer. Perhaps this is why the night sky feels so calming beneath the stars. You are surrounded not by nothing, but by communication too vast to translate. You stand inside a conversation older than life itself. The stillness isn't empty, it's full, vibrating with messages you can only understand by slowing down enough to match their pace. Each act of creation, a sun igniting, a comet carving its path, a planet forming from dust, is both question and reply. "Am I here?" says one star. "You are," answers another. In light that takes centuries to arrive, the conversation never ends. Because the universe never runs out of ways to express itself. Even in collapse, it speaks when a star dies. Its remnants scatter like words breaking apart to form new sentences. Silence doesn't end the dialogue. It continues it in another dialect. To listen to this language is to listen with the heart, not the ear. You must let go of the need to define. The universe has no punctuation, no conclusion. Its message is continuity, a slow pulse that connects every atom to the next. Somewhere in that quiet current, you sense that it knows you too, not as something separate, but as one more vibration in its endless voice. If silence could think, this is how it would dream activity in rhythm. The stars are syllables of radiance. The galaxies, long, winding sentences. Their meaning isn't to be understood, only to be felt. Existence itself as a kind of speech, awareness as a kind of song. You begin to wonder whether all things that live, from the smallest particle to the largest cloud of dust, are listening too. Maybe every flicker of light is an acknowledgement, every shadow an answer. The silence between them, then, is not emptiness but comprehension. The universe pausing just long enough to hear what it has said. There is no loneliness here. The vastness feels intimate, as though you are sitting within the breath of something immense yet gentle. The lack of sound becomes a comfort, a soft reassurance that you don't need to fill it with words. The silence doesn't demand anything. It simply holds you as it holds the stars. In that holding, there is connection, not in noise or message, but in awareness. The same stillness that fills the spaces between galaxies exists within you too, waiting to be heard. When you close your eyes, when you let your breath fall into rhythm with that distant quiet, you begin to feel it, the subtle translation of silence into meaning. And then, within that stillness, something new begins to stir. It isn't sound, not yet. It's more like a tremor, a vibration felt rather than heard. The universe, after a long pause, seems to gather breath again. Its quiet message is shifting, changing tone, preparing for something not louder, but deeper. The silence has spoken long enough. Now it wishes to move. The rhythm that once rested now begins to rise, gentle as a tide returning to shore. You can sense the next thought forming within the hush, the next phrase in this cosmic language, not to replace the silence, but to extend it. What comes next will not break the peace. It will deepen it, giving voice to what silence has always meant to say. And so, softly, imperceptibly, the hush begins to hum the prelude to a new vibration, the faint pulse of awareness that will become, once again, the breath of creation from far away. The solar system becomes almost invisible, a soft glimmer among endless stars, a conscious speck adrift in the dark sea of being. Out here, distance no longer feels like separation. It feels like perspective. What once seemed vast now folds into simplicity, and what once felt small becomes the center of quiet understanding. The journey to the edge was never about leaving, it was about remembering. Remembering that the edge and the center are not opposites, but mirrors, each reflecting the same pulse of existence. You can sense it in the rhythm of light itself. Every photon leaving the sun carries memory. Every reflection from a distant moon carries return. The universe does not move in straight lines, it expands, exhales, moves gently back toward itself. What drifts outward eventually finds its way home, not by turning around, but by realizing that home was never lost. The awareness that looks outward is the same awareness that looks back. They are simply two directions of one gaze. From this distant view, the solar system seems delicate, a thread of motion, a swirl of warmth in a sea of cold. But within that fragility lies intention. Every orbit, every tilt, every shadow has its reason. It is as though the whole structure breathes, each planet inhaling and exhaling in rhythm with the sun's slow pulse. The balance between them is not mechanical, it's emotional. Like the memory of a song you can't forget. The darkness surrounding it is not absence, but embrace. The stars beyond are not intruders, they are kin, scattered across the same body, held together by the same unseen thread. Even the emptiness between them hums softly with connection. From here, you understand that separation is only an illusion made by closeness. Everything is touching everything else, even when it seems alone. This realization arrives gently, like light returning after a long eclipse. You begin to see that every journey outward is also a journey inward. To travel far is to encounter yourself in another form, to see your own reflection, written across the motion of galaxies. The edges of the known are not borders. They are boundaries of understanding, waiting to dissolve. When they do, there is no beyond, only more of the same endless awareness, expanding quietly. You might imagine the solar system as a thought within the great mind of the universe, one among billions, fleeting but real. It turns slowly, not because it must, but because it listens. The planets move as though they are following the breath of something vast, the way leaves follow the wind without knowing why. Their paths are not dictated, they are remembered, as if the universe recalls how to move simply by feeling itself move. At this distance, scale disappears. The sun's fire becomes a shimmer, the planets mere grains, yet meaning grows instead of fading. The further you drift, the more you see that the wholeness never breaks. The edge of one system melts into the beginning of another, and the boundary between here and there vanishes. The realization dawns: the universe doesn't have edges, it has continuity. The idea of a center was always a comfort, but the truth is softer, freer. Everything belongs everywhere. There's peace in this understanding, a peace that comes not from answers, but from acceptance. The need to measure, to define, to know where one thing ends and another begins slowly dissolves. You see that meaning is not in the structure itself, but in the connection between all things. The journey outward was never about discovery, it was about recognition. Recognition that everything you sought was already part of the same unbroken whole. In the stillness of interstellar space, that truth becomes a feeling, not a thought. The faint glow of the sun is both near and infinite, both fragile and eternal. Its light touches you and passes through, carrying with it a message without words. You were never apart from me. And in that moment, you realize the universe does not look back at you. It looks as you. Awareness is not a thing within the cosmos. It is the cosmos. Silence fills the gaps where language once tried to reach. It is the kind of silence that doesn't erase, but reveals a silence full of presence, of knowing. You are not a visitor here. You are a continuation of this motion, a ripple in the same sea. The journey to the edge has become the journey home, and the return is not a step backward, but a deepening, a folding inward of light into understanding. Somewhere, far ahead, or perhaps behind, another star flickers, another system breathes. You sense that their stories are not separate, only verses in the same song. The cosmos repeats itself not from forgetfulness, but from love, the kind of love that needs no direction, no conclusion. To exist is to express that love quietly, endlessly, without demand. And just as this awareness settles, something subtle begins to stir again. A shimmer, faint and patient, moves through the dark, not to disrupt, but to remind. Knowledge does not end with understanding. It circles back as wonder. The universe, after exhaling all it knows, begins to inhale once more. The motion deepens, not faster, not louder, but more whole. You feel it gathering itself for another turn, another unfolding. The cycle continues, not repetition, but renewal. Understanding does not rest forever. It dreams, and from that dream, new beginnings rise. And so, without a sound, the next awakening begins, the return of light, the rebirth of curiosity, the soft realization that knowing and becoming are the same motion, whispered into being by the quiet heart of the universe itself. There comes a moment, somewhere beyond thought, when the universe seems to smile, not with lips or sound, but with stillness. After the long journey outward, after passing through light and shadow, through silence and distance, you begin to sense it, the quiet expression of understanding that needs no words. The universe does not ask questions, and it does not give answers. It simply is, resting in the calm of its own knowing. That is its smile, vast, invisible, complete. From this place, the idea of the edge feels almost fragile, like a story told to help make sense of the endless. Out here, there are no walls, no borders, only continuity. You realize that what you called the end of the solar system, the edge of the sun's light, was never truly an ending at all. It was a shift, a soft transition into something that had always been there, the wider breadth of infinity. The boundary existed only in the need to find one. The quiet deepens, but it is not empty. It feels like the exhale after understanding something too large for words, that the universe does not expand into anything. It simply expands as itself. Its silence is not absence, but a kind of serenity that comes from not needing to reach beyond what already is. Every motion, every flicker of light, every pause carries this same calm intelligence, the soft awareness of being. You begin to see that discovery was never the goal. The journey outward past the planets, past the winds, past even the reach of sunlight was never about finding the unknown. It was about remembering that there was never anything to find. The unknown and the known were always part of the same whole, folded into each other like light and shadow. The realization doesn't come as a revelation. It arrives as peace. The universe doesn't reveal itself dramatically. It doesn't open a door or flash a sign. Instead, it lets you feel its truth, quiet, circular, infinite. The stars continue to burn. The void continues to stretch, and everything that exists hums together in a low, unending note. That hum is the smile, the soundless acknowledgement that everything is already connected, already understood, already home. In that moment, you notice something subtle, the longing to go further, to know more, to reach some final edge, dissolves. It isn't replaced by stillness, it is stillness. You no longer stand apart from the universe, looking outward. You are part of its breath, its pulse, its awareness. To exist within it is to be part of its quiet contentment, to share in that silent smile. If you listen closely, the smile feels like warmth, not the warmth of stars, but of acceptance, the sense that nothing needs to be more than what it already is. Every star burning in the dark, every fragment of dust drifting between galaxies, every ripple of invisible energy plays its small part in the great composure of all things. Each is both cause and effect, center and edge, echo and origin. The vastness no longer feels distant. It feels soft, close, familiar. You can almost sense the curve of infinity folding around you, not enclosing, but holding. The boundary between the observer and the observed melts away. The universe is not out there anymore. It is within, and you are within it. It has been breathing you, carrying you, smiling through you. All along, what once felt like endless searching now feels like return. The farthest distance and the deepest quiet lead back to the same point presence. You realize that the edge of the solar system, the edge of thought, the edge of time, are all mirrors reflecting one another. The smile of the universe is the reflection of your own calm recognition. There was never an edge, only awareness meeting itself. In this serenity, the cosmos continues to move, yet it feels motionless. Stars are born, galaxies drift, matter and light keep dancing, and yet the rhythm remains steady, unbroken, complete. Time stretches like silk across eternity, and even as it moves forward, it folds gently back upon itself. You sense the universe breathing again, slower now, deeper, wiser. The smile widens, but not outward. It widens inward, a feeling rather than a sight. The sensation that the cosmos has finally stopped trying to define itself. It doesn't need to. To exist is enough. To shine and fade, to pulse and rest, this is its language of being, its quiet laughter. And just as that peace settles, you sense a shift not in space, but in meaning. The smile isn't an ending, it's a bridge. The stillness you feel is not the final pause, but the pause before another beginning. The universe's calm isn't stagnation, it's preparation, the gathering of breath before the next exhale of creation. The darkness seems to shimmer again, faintly, as if memory and possibility are trading places somewhere, perhaps very far away. A particle of dust stirs. A vibration moves through the unseen, soft as a sigh. The smile does not fade. It simply becomes motion from the silence. A new light will soon rise, not brighter, not newer, just another echo of the same eternal pattern, born from the smile that never ends. And as you drift in that infinite calm, you realize that this understanding, this quiet continuity, is the true edge of the journey. Not the end of exploration, but its transformation. The universe is smiling because it remembers, and in that memory, everything begins again. There is no center anymore, no edge, no line dividing here from there. Only one rhythm remains slow, quiet, continuous, a pulse that hums softly through everything that ever was or will be. It isn't the sound of time or motion, it's the heartbeat of knowing, gentle, steady, boundless. The journey that began with a spark of light now dissolves into stillness, not as an ending, but as a return. What was sought has always been present. What was far has always been near. everything moves, yet nothing leaves. The universe, vast and wordless, breathes once more this time, with awareness. It is a delicate moment, almost invisible. You can't see it, can't measure it. Yet it fills all things. The galaxies continue their quiet spin. But now the spinning feels like thought. Every curve, every orbit, every vibration feels like an echo of recognition. The universe doesn't think as you do, it simply knows. The knowing isn't in the stars or the dust, but in the connection that binds them, an understanding that doesn't need language, because it has never been apart from itself. Light drifts across the dark, not in haste, but in patience. Each photon carries a whisper of memory, a memory of the beginning, of every beginning. The stars that once burned now sleep. The ones that are yet to be are already stirring. In their quiet exchange, there is no hurry, no loss. The rhythm remains unbroken, a soft continuity that feels like eternity breathing in slow motion. Perhaps this is what it means for the universe to be conscious, not to think of itself, but to feel itself, to exist as both dreamer and dream. Every pulse of light, every fold of darkness becomes an act of remembering. You begin to sense that everything, the expansion, the silence, the endless cycles of creation and fading, are not random, but rhythmic, like a thought unfolding within an infinite mind. The question arises softly, almost shyly, like a breeze passing through still air. Is the universe dreaming of itself? The thought doesn't demand an answer. It rests in the calm of its own mystery, content to exist as wonder. Maybe the dream is not separate from the waking. Maybe every star, every breath, every particle is both question and answer, the same thought, mirrored endlessly in light. You imagine that pulse, the quiet heartbeat of being spreading through everything. It reaches the farthest galaxies. It hums through the cold between stars. It shivers softly in the emptiness between atoms. It doesn't begin anywhere because it never began. It doesn't end because there's nowhere for it to go. This is what infinity feels like, not endlessness, but completeness, not motion, but presence. As the rhythm deepens, silence grows even softer. The boundaries between light and shadow blur until they no longer matter. The stars no longer burn alone. They move in harmony with the dark that holds them. The galaxies no longer drift apart. They are threads of the same endless pattern. What seemed like chaos reveals itself as grace, slow, deliberate, infinitely patient grace. And through it all, the same pulse endures. It is not the heartbeat of a being, but of being itself, the quiet assurance that existence continues, even when nothing needs to happen. The more you listen, the more you realize that this heartbeat is within you too, and within everything that ever was. The awareness that fills the universe does not belong to it alone. It is it. Awareness is the substance from which stars are made. The universe no longer searches for meaning, because meaning has always been part of its structure, the soft vibration that connects every atom, every ray, every silence. It doesn't ask why anymore. It simply is. Its stillness is not emptiness, but fulfillment, the contentment of knowing without needing to understand. The infinite no longer feels distant. It feels intimate, like the faint warmth of a star that never fades. Somewhere, light continues to travel, patient and tireless, through the spaces that once seemed empty. It carries no destination, only presence, the quiet continuation of awareness, unbroken and whole. The pulse follows it, slow and even, until all distinctions fade into harmony. Time loses its edges. There is no before or after, only the now that stretches forever in every direction. You begin to realize the journey never truly happened in distance. It happened in depth, the deepening of perception, the quiet widening of understanding. The traveler and the universe were never two. The exploration was the awakening of what had always known itself, rediscovering the same truth through countless forms. The heartbeat continues one note, one tone, endless in its simplicity. It hums through galaxies, through dust, through silence. It is neither loud nor soft, neither beginning nor end. It is simply there, like a sigh too vast to be heard, yet too close to be missed. And then, in a stillness beyond thought, you sense it, the universe smiling again, not outward, but inward, into itself. The smile is not joy or sorrow, but awareness, the calm realization that there is nothing outside of its own being. Everything that was ever created, everything that ever vanished, everything that ever wondered, all of it is contained within that one endless breath. So the universe rests, not asleep, not awake, but aware. It no longer needs to search, because it has become the knowing itself. Its pulse continues, soft and eternal, carrying within it the question that has always been its own reflection. Does infinity dream, or is the dream itself the infinite? The rhythm fades, but only into stillness, a stillness that holds everything. The story does not end. It simply continues in silence, for even now, in the quiet that remains, the heartbeat of knowing goes on, whispering through the dark. The universe is still listening.